Disclaimer: case studies and dollar amounts in this video are illustrative examples based on verified industry data. Individual results may vary. The strategies presented are proven methodologies used in ASC revenue cycle management. CMS launches mandatory prior authorization January 5th in 7 states. Services start January 19th. ASCs without defense systems risk jumping from 4% denial rates to 15–18%. On 2 million in quarterly procedures, that's $220K to $280K in delayed revenue. The 5-phase defense system keeps your denial rate at 4% and recovers existing denials. 7 states, January 5th submission start: California, Florida, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Georgia, New York. Services begin January 19th. 3 more states February 2nd: Texas, Arizona, Ohio. Services February 16th. The demonstration targets 5 procedures: blepharoplasty, botulinum toxin injections, paniculectomy, rhinoplasty, vein ablation. Here's what makes this different. Review happens before payment. Traditional Medicare: submit claim, get paid, maybe face audit later. New model: submit prior authorization, wait for approval, provide service, submit claim, then get paid. Centers without documentation protocols average 14 to 21 days to prior auth approval. That's 2 to 3 weeks of scheduling delays per case. Medicare Advantage already processes 50 million prior authorizations annually. In 2023, they denied 3.2 million requests, a 6.4% denial rate. The systemic issue: healthcare providers lack front-end validation frameworks. SSI Group data shows 32.5% of all denials originate from front-end errors. Industry benchmarks tell the story. ASCs run 4% denial rates in 2024, down from 8% in 2023. Healthcare hit 11.8% in 2024, up from 10.2%. ASCs outperform by 3x. But 32.5% of denials come from front-end errors. Without proper systems, ASCs risk losing this advantage. 22% of healthcare leaders lose at least $500,000 annually to denials. Over half report denial rates exceeding 10%. Average rework cost: $47.77 for Medicare Advantage, $63.76 commercial. For 30 denials monthly, that's $1,430 to $1,913 in administrative costs before recovering $1. The 7-element documentation checklist CMS requires for medical necessity proof. This framework keeps prepared ASCs at 4% denial rates, while others spike to 15–18%. These 7 elements are non-negotiable for the January 19th demonstration start. The 5-phase prior authorization defense. System Phase 1, Procedure Inventory and Exposure Analysis, days 1 to 5. Most ASCs don't know which cases trigger the demonstration. Step 1, pull your complete 12-month case log by CPT code. Step 2, cross-reference against the CMS demonstration procedure list. 5 categories: blepharoplasty, botulinum toxin injections, paniculectomy, rhinoplasty, vein ablation. Step 3, calculate monthly volume per affected procedure. Step 4, calculate dollar exposure per category. Real example: 150. Procedure ASC reviews their data. 18 cases per month hit demonstration criteria. Average case revenue: $11,500. Monthly exposure: $207,000. Quarterly exposure: $621,000. Without prior authorization approval, those cases cannot proceed. Phase 1 deliverable: complete inventory spreadsheet showing procedure type, monthly volume, average revenue per case, total exposure. Phase 2, medical necessity documentation protocol, days 6 to 15. CMS requires specific documentation elements for medical necessity proof. The 7 required elements: First, clinical rationale with supporting diagnosis codes. ICD-10 codes must demonstrate medical necessity, not cosmetic intent. Second, documented conservative treatment attempts. CMS wants evidence you tried less invasive options first, minimum 60 to 90 days depending on procedure. Third, functional impact measurements. Quantified data showing how the condition affects daily living. Fourth, objective clinical findings. Test results, measurements, imaging reports. Fifth, photographic evidence where applicable. Sixth, physician attestation of medical necessity, explicit statement from the operating physician. Seventh, alignment with local coverage determinations. Your documentation must match MAC-specific requirements. Real case study. Blepharoplasty prior authorization. Insufficient documentation. Patient reports drooping eyelids affecting vision. Prior auth denied. Reason. Lacks objective evidence. Sufficient documentation. Visual field testing demonstrates 45% superior field loss bilaterally. Patient failed conservative management with lubricating drops for 90 days. Functional impact documented. Difficulty with driving, reading, daily activities. Photographic evidence shows dermatochalasis obscuring upper lid margin. Ophthalmologist attestation confirms medical necessity for functional improvement, not cosmetic enhancement. Prior auth approved, 9 business days. Centers using standardized templates. Denial rates remain at 4%. Centers submitting incomplete documentation. Denial rates spike to 15–18%. Phase 3. Submission workflow and timing. Days 16 to 25. Timing determines cash flow impact. CMS demonstration allows submissions starting 14 days before planned procedure date. The optimal workflow. Day 1, surgery scheduled. Day 2, trigger documentation checklist. Day 3 to 4, clinical team completes 7 required elements. Day 5, billing team submits prior authorization. Submission methods ranked by speed. Novitasphere portal, fastest. Electronic submission via ESMD. Fax or mail, slowest, avoid when possible. CMS guidelines promise 7 calendar days for initial decision, 2 business days for expedited requests. Real-world data shows 10 to 14 business days in practice. Build 14 to 21-day buffer into surgical scheduling. Critical tracking point. Document your submission date and method. This creates your audit trail for any delays. Phase 4. The 7-element prevention checklist. Ongoing. Before any prior authorization submission, verify all 7 elements. Element 1. ICD-10 diagnosis codes demonstrate medical necessity. Check local coverage determinations for your MAC jurisdiction. Element 2. Conservative treatment documented for required time frame. Minimum 60 days for most procedures, 90 days for blepharoplasty. Element 3. Functional impairment quantified with objective measurements. Visual field testing, range of motion measurements, validated assessment tools. Element 4. Clinical findings from qualified providers. Physician notes, specialist evaluations, diagnostic testing. Element 5. Photographic documentation where applicable. Date-stamped images showing clinical condition. Element 6. Physician attestation explicitly stating medical necessity. Must be in clinical notes, not just implied. Element 7. Patient consent and financial responsibility discussion documented. Protects you if denial occurs despite proper documentation. Real denial prevention example. Rhinoplasty for deviated septum. Initial submission missing elements 2 and 3. Caught by checklist before submission. Team adds. Sleep study documenting obstruction. ENT evaluation showing 75% nasal blockage. Conservative management documentation showing steroid spray use for 120 days with no improvement. Functional impact documentation including chronic sinusitis episodes and sleep disruption. Resubmitted with all 7 elements. Approved in 8 business days. The checklist prevented a denial that would have delayed surgery 45 to 60 days through appeal process. Phase 5. Batch recovery for existing denials. Days 26 to 90. The batch appeal framework. Week 1. Export all prior authorization denials from the past 90 days. Week 2. Categorize denials by reason code. Most common: insufficient medical necessity documentation, missing conservative treatment proof, incomplete functional assessment, diagnosis codes not supporting procedure. Week 3. Create standardized appeal template for each category. Include the 7 required elements. Week 4. Submit batch appeals using templates. Time comparison. Individual appeals average 4 to 6 hours per case. Batch template approach. 45 minutes per case. 87% time reduction. Real recovery metrics. 180. Procedure ASC with 28 prior auth denials, totaling $347,000. Categorized into 4 denial reason groups. Created 4 appeal templates. Submitted all 28 appeals in 2.5 business days. Results: 17 approvals in 30 days, recovering $217,000. 6 additional approvals by day 60, recovering $74,000. Total: 23 of 28 approved, 82% success rate, $291,000 recovered. Remember that 7-element checklist? Here it is in action. Real peer-to-peer review script achieving 85% approval rates when initial prior authorizations get denied. The framework: this is Dr. Name, regarding prior authorization for procedure on patient ID. Medical necessity is supported by 3 categories of evidence. First, objective clinical findings. Site-specific test results, measurements, imaging data. Second, documented conservative management failure. Lists specific treatments attempted, timeframes, documented outcomes. Third, quantified functional impairment. Specific examples of how condition affects daily living. This documentation aligns with Medicare coverage criteria under Site-Specific LCD or NCD policy section. What additional clinical information would support approval? Key elements that drive the 85% success rate. Lead with objective data, not subjective complaints. Demonstrate systematic treatment progression. Site-specific coverage policy sections. Ask for collaboration, not confrontation. Average peer-to-peer duration: 6 to 8 minutes. Compared to written appeals, 30 to 45-day processing time, 50-60% success rate. Peer-to-peer resolves same day when successful. Your implementation roadmap. Week 1. Monday, pull 12-month case logs by CPT code. Tuesday, identify cases hitting demonstration criteria. Wednesday, calculate monthly volume and dollar exposure. Thursday, create documentation templates with 7 required elements. Friday, train surgical scheduling team on new workflow. Week 2. Monday, train clinical team on documentation requirements. Tuesday, train billing team on submission protocols. Wednesday, set up Novitasphere portal access. Thursday, create tracking dashboard for submissions and decisions. Friday, submit first test prior authorization using complete 7-element framework. Week 3. Monday, review test submission outcome and approval timeline. Tuesday, Wednesday, refine templates based on feedback. Thursday, implement full workflow for all affected procedures. Friday, begin processing prior authorizations for February and March scheduled procedures. Week 4. Monday, export existing prior authorization denials from past 90 days. Tuesday, categorize denials by reason code. Wednesday, create batch appeal templates. Thursday, Friday, submit recovery appeals. By day 30, you have prevention system operational, tracking dashboard active, and recovery pipeline initiated. ASCs maintained 4% denial rates in 2024, while general healthcare hit 11.8%. This 5-phase defense system keeps you in that 4% category when the CMS demonstration launches. Complete implementation guide with documentation templates, submission workflow checklists, appeal scripts, and tracking dashboard linked below. Next week, the 180K revenue code error in implant billing that 35% of ASCs are making. 3-step audit catching it before payers do. If you're in a demonstration state, you have 11 days until submissions start, 25 days until services begin. This system works. Thanks for watching.